UFC 279 was a strange and interesting card, to say the least. From the very beginning, when the fight was announced, the headliner, Nate Diaz versus Khamzat Chimaev, everybody, the majority consensus was that Diaz is being fed sacrificially to the up-and-coming Khamzat Chimaev. There was a lot of shit talk going back and forth, a lot of bad blood being built up. Everybody knows Nate Diaz's attitude, and everybody knows that Khamzat Chimaev is damn near a certified psycho in the UFC. Now, come Friday, the day before the fight, day of the weigh-in, Khamzat Chimaev comes in 8.5 pounds over the 170 limit. It was almost like he wasn't even trying to make weight. So instead of getting Nate versus Khamzat, you got Nate versus Tony Ferguson as the main event, and as the co-main event, you got Khamzat Chimaev versus Kevin Holland. Once this was announced and everybody was finished processing the information, the majority of the people began to say that this was actually a better fight card now, a more well-balanced, equally matched fight card. It was more competitive, and it was going to give us a better matchup. So the card was strange in the sense to me that you had, I think, 2 or 3 different fights that were catchweight fights, where, you know, if you don't know what catchweight is, it's got people that from 2 separate divisions meeting in the middle to fight in a non-existent division. One of those catchweight bouts was a bout between 2 women, the winner of that fight being Irene Aldana, who did something we'd never seen before. She got a TKO stoppage from her back using a kick, not a traditional up kick, but sort of like downward angled heel kick to the liver area that stopped her opponent. Her opponent dropped down immediately, and the referee waved it off for a TKO stoppage. It was so surreal that it almost seemed like a foul had occurred somehow. At least until they showed the replay, you realized that it was a clean blow. And I think there have been 3 stoppages from people landing blows from their back in the entirety of the UFC, but never a heel kick to the liver. So that was something we've never seen in the UFC. Now in the co-main event, Chimaev versus Holland, they had also built up. There was some sort of backstage dispute the day before, I think before they even knew they were going to fight each other. But point being, the fight didn't last long, and Chimaev, it looked, you can't call it dirty, because the fight had, had already started, but it looked like Holland was putting his gloves up to touch gloves, and Khamzat was having none of that. As soon as Holland put his hands up, he shot in, took him down, and just stayed on him like a pit bull. There was no getting him off of him. I mean, that's what he does. He's strong wrestling background, wrestling pedigree. He's a bit of a psychopath, and once he was on Holland, he would not let up. He ended up winning by a submission. And his post-fight interview was also something to see. He basically called out the entire UFC. He doesn't care what division. He doesn't care who you are. He says that he'll smash everybody. I'd like to see him try, because I think he could go pretty far in the UFC with his athleticism, his skill, and his mentality. Now, in the main event, you had Nate Diaz versus Tony Ferguson. Now, we like this because it was 2 war-tested, battle-tested veterans who are willing to go face first and just get cut up and bloody to give the fans a good show. They were giving that to us. It was everything we thought it would be: entertaining, competitive, and Ferguson was having some success with the leg kicks. He was hurting Nate with the leg kicks, and he kind of let off on that a little bit. And Nate was doing some in the octagon antics where he was resting, chilling, posing, leaning against the fence, like basically checking his watch, like, entertaining stuff. But Ferguson didn't capitalize on any of the times that Nate was just clowning around. And in the 4th round, when Nate ultimately got a submission via guillotine choke, now I'm not saying the fight was fake, but something looked a little suspect about the way it ended. I think Tony kind of sold it, to be honest with you. That might not be a popular opinion, but he sort of like dove neck first into a guillotine choke where Nate choked him out from his back, and he was flexing while he was choking him at the same time. And it seemed like Ferguson was just showing him a lot of respect, like too much respect during the fight. Like, you could have saved that respect till after the fight. And something about the ending just seemed very WWE to me. I'm not saying they weren't really fighting each other, because obviously evidence of them fighting each other is all over their bodies. They were bruised and bloody. But the ultimate submission, guillotine choke, I don't know. Something was sus. You could tell me what you think about that in the comments. I'm no expert. I just call it how I see it. And until next time, you and